more than 100 unique styles of beer, each with their own set of ingredients, process, guidelines, history, and experience. If you're a beer lover, an industry leader, or somewhere in between, a better knowledge of beer style will improve your life and your work.
Welcome to A Sense of Beer Style, essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. I'm Julia Herz.
And I'm Jeremy Storton.
We're advanced Cicerones, beer judges, home brewers, and we're excited to guide you through the vast and wonderful world of beer styles.
Well, this one ought to be a fun one, Julia. This is a beer that is really, it's kind of hard to find. I found them once in a while, but they're kind of hard to find. But there's something really fun about pronouncing German words, especially when they represent what is effectively diet beer. And they call them diet beer. But today we're going to talk about the German Leichtbier.
Yeah, and it is fun to say. I also think it's a crying shame that neither of us have one in our glass or hands today. Doesn't mean you can't get one while you work your way along with this. And big picture besides, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me and Jeremy. We're in the pale bitter European beer category for the Beer Judge Certification Program 2021 style guidelines. And we lead with, as Jeremy alluded to, German Leichtbier. And this is, in the kind of overall scheme of things, a very light, pale-colored, highly attenuated, highly refreshing, lower-calorie-oriented beer. But the German variants, we are not in the style guidelines today talking about, American light lager, for example. So I do think there's some nuance and difference. That's why it's a value to be aware of. And with that, the history is this is kind of in that it's called Schenk beer class. That would denote in Germany 7 to 8 Plato. Plato is a measurement of residual sugar and gravity. And so there's variations of this that fall under their style guidelines. But when it's a traditional lager that is meant to be diet style in the German fashion, traditionally brewed, then we land at German Leichtbier. And so with that, Jeremy, what kind of, ingredients would one expect for this beer style?
Well, this is the nice thing, because with this diet beer, or like the German light, like we have American light lager, this is a German light lager. The ingredients are going to be often similar to a Pils or a Helles, depending on their base. But we're going to have that German Pilsner malt. We're going to have those German hops. We're going to have those that German lager yeast. But it's just they're not using enough of it to get the gravities where they need to be. One thing to pay in particular note to is nowhere do they talk about using adjuncts like rice or corn like they use in the American versions. This is a true beer just meant to be lower alcohol. It's a great, easy drinking beer on a day when you just don't need a little extra alcohol. But you still want to have a beer. That's the essence of the style and the essence of these ingredients that contribute to this beer. So given that, you kind of already talked about it a little bit too, but let's talk about the overall sensory of this beer. I mean, it is a lighter beer, but
and sensory always to me leads with visual. So do the style guidelines start with that. Actually, that's not true. The style guidelines put you in list aroma first, but I like to talk about appearance first. So pale straw to deep yellow in color. Brilliant clarity is a true essential hallmark of this beer. Moderate rocky white head or collar of foam with average, they call it, or below average persistence. That means your collar of foam could collapse more quickly than other beer styles. So super straightforward in appearance, nothing too outlandish or out there. And then what about aroma?
The aroma is really everything you would expect a German Pils to be, just lighter. We've got a low to medium low, grainy malt character. It could be sweet, crackery, kind of what you expect out of these pale German lagers. The hops tend to be a little bit low to medium, but they're there. They bring the flavor across. But of course, we're talking about German hops. So the noble hops, we're going to have all those floral, spicy, maybe even like peppery, garden twiggy type of flavors that would come through. I'm sorry, aromas that would come through. But you should expect a clean fermentation. In years or in guidelines past, there was a discussion of maybe a little bit of like sulfur could come through, which is kind of typical and common of Pilsners. They don't mention that in the 2021 BJCP guidelines. But anyone who knows the brewing process and how these ingredients manifest, if there's just a touch of that, I wouldn't mark it down. That's pretty much par for the course on beers like this, I think. But given that, how would you expect these to taste?
Well, I think everything you just said, which is the hallmark of many styles, aroma falls right into flavor in those same ranges. You just said the following for aroma, and it applies to flavor: low to medium grainy, sweet malty flavor, medium hop bitterness, low to medium hop flavor. And that hop flavor, in the way you describe it, is similar to how I would. It's noble hops, German noble hops, spicy, herbal, floral, can go to minty for those German noble hops, but low to medium. And then clean fermentation character in the style guidelines, when they say that, that means it isn't that sulfury notes that Jeremy alludes to. You're not going to get esters because this is lager yeast fermented and laid down or lagered. And you're also going to get, a dry finish. So refreshing dry finish, not a lot of lingering residual sugar, but with a little bit of that light malty and hoppy aftertaste. So there is a slight note of complexity if you get a fresh example, for sure.
Yeah.
And then mouthfeel.
With mouthfeel, we got to remember that this is a Leichtbier. It's a light beer. It's a diet Pils. They call it diet Pils. So the body of this is going to be low to very low. It's the what I refer to, and I don't know if they call it this, but I refer to it as the German lawnmower beer. Right? It's very light in body. It's meant, and it's high in carbonation. It's meant to be refreshing. It should be smooth. It should be well attenuated. This is an easy drinking beer, and the mouthfeel reflects that for sure. But as far as the mouthfeel, let's talk about the style comparison. I think this is where the rubber hits the road, because we've already made some comparisons to American lagers, but how is it different really?
Yeah, and if you're going to do more of an advanced tasting to kind of get your palate tuned up and advance your chops and prowess in the arena of blind beer tastings, I would definitely have this one in the mix along with the German style Kolsch, and then have it with a German Pils and a Munich Helles. So the way the style guidelines will guide you is it's like a lower alcohol, lighter bodied, less aggressive German Pilsner. And those are much more common, or Munich Helles. So it's lower alcohol, lighter body than both those two styles, but it's actually more bitter and flavorful than the American light lager that I referenced. So it's a really good one to have because there's subtle differences, and it's almost like this spectrum of differences. And if you could get that slate of beer styles nailed blind, you're doing very, very well.
Well, especially to your point, to taste all these beers side by side and to catch the nuances, because that's going to be a difficult a selection of beers to really decipher. But one of the things I always love, I always get a giggle when I read this, but with the American lager, American light lager, it says strong flavors are a fault. Those are meant to be close to water, or like really tasty water. So the Leichtbier is going to have more flavor, more hop character, more malt character. So it's not going to have strong flavors, but it's going to have stronger flavors than those American lagers. And so that's one way to differentiate that from an American one. If you can identify a kind of a German ingredient list as opposed to an American ingredient list, or the use of adjuncts or not, that's also going to be a nice little way to differentiate. But that's, But
and I'm glad you got commercial examples on this one, because they, the style guidelines for Beer Judge Certification Program are true to the classic calibration commercial examples that today still set the tone. Obviously, you have to find them somewhere to have them be listed as a calibration commercial example. But what do you got, Jeremy? And how often are you even coming across anything here that's listed in the States, at least?
So the list has changed from the last guidelines, and I don't recognize any of these. I have to be honest. I don't recognize them. I can't pronounce them. I need to go take a German class just so I can speak German beer. So I'm going to attempt to pronounce these with the intent of like trying to get this information across. But if it brings you a giggle at my horrible German pronunciation, then by all means. And anyone who has better info, please let me know. But some of the beers on this list, again, I have never seen these. The Altenreiter Schlossbräu Leicht. The Greifbräu Leicht, the Hotenthaner 10 Hell Leicht. Hell I recognize because, Helle, for anyone who's listening to this, that just means pale in German. So it's a pale, light beer. So that much I got. And there's a few other beers. There's the Mullerbräu Heimer Leicht, the Schonreimer Sertiler Schenk beer. You really lucked out on this one, Julia, that I had to pronounce these because this is horrible.
I'm going to help you out and jump in here. And we don't normally read every beer example in the commercial ones, but look for beers that are labeled Leicht. Or Schenk beer, and you will be doing okay. And sometimes if you see an umlaut, over the U, it might catch your eye and end up being one of these. Yeah. So good, more than good attempt. But yes, they did change the listings to be really even more authentic. But there's Americanized versions out there as well. Although, again, acknowledging we certainly hope and know that we have a global audience. So I'll take it to vital statistics, which really do dial us in. You're looking at a very low original gravity, 1026 to 1034. Mm-hmm. And I'll always have that then take us to the ABV or alcohol by volume, which means 2.4% to 3.6%. So the numbers are very close when you think original gravity to ABV, often just a point or two off. But 2.4% to 3.6% by volume. That's a very Schenk beer, sessionable, light beer. Barely buzzable is what I would call it.
Yes.
The final gravity will take us to drier finished beers. 1006 to 1010 is definitely lower than many of the final gravities for the beers listed in the style guidelines. And then IBUs or international bitterness units, 15 to 28 is actually pretty significant and definitely higher than our American light lager. Bitterness is different, perceptible levels for different people. But when you have 8 bitterness units or above, then it starts to get to anything as perceptible. But mostly, 10 or less, it's really more of a preservative. The bitterness units here are meant to, and as the style guidelines point out, give you a discerning low level of bitterness. And up to that 28 is getting a little more aggressive. And then the color, extremely pale. You'd have to really force my hand to say that there's any other styles listed that have an SRM of 1.5. To 4. 4 is not even gold color yet. 4 is still straw, kind of pale yellow. 1.5 SRM to 4 is very, very pale colored beer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing to note too, that final gravity, just the dryness of this might actually allow what bitterness is there to shine a little bit more brightly. And that's the thing I love about the stats is you can kind of imagine what the beer is going to be like just by looking at those numbers.
Right. The more residual sugar, the more balance you have against the bitterness. And there's a ratio for that, GU to BU ratio. That's geekdom stuff. But your point is very, very valid. So the bitterness is even going to show forward even more. So what about ideal glassware and serving temperature?
So glassware at serving temp, I'm inclined to not pull this from the bottom of the Yeti cooler, but I'm inclined to pull it from the top of the Yeti cooler. Basically refrigerator temps at 38 to 40 degrees. This is a refreshing post-activity beer as far as I'm concerned. And so this is meant to be cold. If I'm not drinking this out of the bottle, then I'd prefer to decant it in a Pilsner glass, a footed Pilsner glass. But I wouldn't shake a stick if someone gave this to me in a Willy Becker either, but it really ought to be in a Pilsner glass is my feeling. Do you have any others that you'd add to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I am looking for more considerable carbonation to help with the refreshment.
Yeah.
Sorted glass that's going to support that. I will avoid the pint glass for most beer styles, except for my cocktails. Spoiler alert there. But I would say that carbonation is a factor, and the style guidelines just don't mention that, at least in BJCP. So I'm looking for 2.7 volumes of CO2 to be more robust, and that's about it. But yeah, colder, fresh, carbonated, that's what you want.
Now, what about pairing? What would you pair with this?
Yeah, so I'll take the cheat and say I would just drink a glass or two. I mean, it's so light, so refreshing. You certainly could sit on a beach and Jeremy brings up tacos almost every pairing suggestion for every style. But anything that it's going to look to bridge, link, hook into, have echoes with, better be not too robust in terms of flavor or richness or fat. That said, I do like the idea of the tortilla synergies. When something's predominantly Pilsner malt, you're looking for that low graham cracker, kind of soda cracker type of flavor that also is in food. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to drink a few of these and not worry about pairing too much. But if I pair it, it's going to help with refreshment. But chances are a lot of the flavor gets washed away if the food is too rich.
Well, and one thing we don't often talk about when we get to this, bless you, when we talk about this, the pairing of these beers, we don't really talk about pairing with an activity. And frankly, this is the type of beer I want to drink either at a ball game or a football game, not American football, but soccer. Football. This is the type of beer that I want to go have an activity with, have in my hand while I'm playing a game or something like that. Because it's sessionable, I'm not going to get loaded. This is the perfect pairing for activities and trying to still be responsible.
Yep. Well played. Pairing is many things, not just beverage to food. So with that, we want to thank you for joining us for German Leichtbier. And we hope you find some examples or go to Germany, better yet, and actually drink them locally from the source or seek out American craft beer examples as well. But we thank you very much for joining us for this Stylecast.
Yep. And I can't wait to learn how to pronounce these names better. But see you next time.
Thank you for listening to A Sense of Beer Style, the essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. With advanced Cicerones, me, Julia,
and me, Jeremy.
Tune into the next episode as we continue exploring the world of beer styles and what to make of them. We encourage you to listen to the prepisodes to build your foundation and better understand beer styles.
And before the next episode, I'd like to ask you to review the show and let us know what you'd like featured in upcoming episodes. Until next time, here's to you and your sense of beer style. Thank you for listening. Cheers.